From the Funky Town Network. Sponsored by Lee's Book and Tea Shop. Welcome to The Barbershop, where local music people talk about local music stuff. I'm Matthew Bros, your host. We got an excellent panel of guests here today, starting on my left with...
Jeremy Hull. By day, I'm a digital marketer. By night, I play bass in a number of bands.
Yes, quite a large number. most recently that I saw Intruder, the Peter Gabriel tribute, which is pretty awesome.
Well, cool.
Also we have...
I'm Janice McCall. I host a radio show on KTCU on Saturdays, as well as manage the radio station there at TCU.
You boss all those little punks around.
I do.
And they need it too. Over here we have
Jeff Gibbons, who has hardly ever made any money in music, but put in a lot of time.
That doesn't distinguish you from any of us here.
That's right. I guess that's not a distinction. But I've been playing in TCC bands since the early '90s. And which is a big money maker.
You got some longevity.
And actually, recently, I have become the director at the Southside Preservation Hall.
Yes.
We wish to start doing some more concerts up there.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Because you've done the big band and stuff up there, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. We're still doing the big band. Matter of fact,
that.
this Friday is first Friday of the month. There we go. Big band.
Awesome.
For 25 years we've been doing that. I think we've missed once during that time. Another big money maker.
Yeah.
That's right.
I did that gig once, probably about 6 or 7 years ago.
You did?
Yeah.
Well, I was probably there. Maybe that's where we met.
Yeah, there you
because
go.
We would be sitting right next to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you should come hear the band again. It's never been better.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We have a lot of young kids driving down all the way from Denton,
Ye
from
old UNT,
to play for 3 hours. We finally, after 25 years, decided to cut it down from 4 hours to 3 hours. And they take their $27 and try to make it back home with that.
That's $27 is not terrible. You know?
That's not bad at all.
No.
I've worked harder for less.
It's
Great
been
music.
worse. Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, the hourly pay since we cut down an hour is really gone up.
Yeah, we're right. I'm sure that's true. Well, one concert that probably is going to pay a lot more than that is the Fortress Festival, which is coming up here. And there was a lot of talk when they released the lineup on there that seemed like no one recognized anybody who was. I mean, they recognized a couple, like Diplo and maybe a couple. But it seemed like maybe, I guess, compared against like last year was like Leon Bridges and Churches and like some people that even I recognized. And
There are quite a few. I was looking at it today, the lineup, to see if it was really. We were going to dive in there of any kind of sponsorship or ticket giveaways on the air, and I didn't recognize over half.
And I was trying to figure out if that's just a function of me being old, or if
that's what I wondered too. But
then I saw
the
some
youngsters.
I heard some younger folks go like, "Who?"
Some
Do
of
they
the
have-
students,
what
and
is
they
this?
didn't know.
Do they have
either.
more artists this year? Did they try and spread it around some?
I don't think it's more that I'm aware, because they had a lot last year, if I recall.
It seems to be more hip hop this year.
Yeah, I think it's skewing that way,
Yeah.
and maybe that's probably why I don't recognize it, is because it's less in my bailiwick. But of course, one of the things they're doing is they're still in the process of signing up local bands to go and play it, and so maybe by the end of that, maybe I'll recognize
Hint,
more
hint.
towards the bottom of the bill than the
Vote
top.
for the Matthew Show.
Yeah. I might throw that in, that yes, if you want to vote for the Matthew Show on that, you can absolutely do
Indeed.
that. But it's funny to me because I had a friend of mine when I was announcing that, like, you can vote for my band on this thing. He's like, "Oh, that's just a popularity contest." And I was like, but isn't like the music industry a popularity contest?
At the end of the day, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of, the industry part is.
But it's it's a popularity contest with a tangible outcome.
Well, yeah, it certainly can be. I mean, like if you do get to play the Fortress Festival, I presume they pay you more than $27. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know if they do or not.
Maybe.
But
But how much fun?
Yeah,
you know?
no, it's a fun type
I would
of
do
thing.
it just for the fun of it.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm listening to it. I mean, I'm listening to these little videos, and part of it I think is an age thing because it's clearly these are people who maybe are brand new, you know. I mean, the people who are, but they were able to get like 800 people to vote for them, you know, or something like that. So
Right.
it kind of points out sometimes that we don't have one music industry here in town, or one music scene. We have multiple
for
music
sure.
scenes.
I agree.
You know, because I know I can go down to the stockyards and there'll be guys who playing for a lot of people who I've never heard of in my life, but they're very popular.
And they've been playing
You know.
there once a week for 7 years. Yeah.
Or
You know,
more
yeah.
than that.
You know, and the same thing with hip hop clubs. You know, like if I, you know, even though Fort Worth doesn't have a lot of them, but I don't even know if we have one like dedicated hip hop club. Probably not. I know Dallas has several.
Yeah, Dallas does, but I don't know about Fort Worth.
I don't
and
know
we
if-
even have a hip hop show. Of a couple
Yeah,
of
well, and,
students
we have places that will have, you know, like Rex or whoever on the bill, but it won't be. I don't know of a club that's just that.
Yeah.
Like it's not something like
But the
this.
artists are out there because they're
Absolutely out
clamoring
there.
to get on the air.
Oh yeah, well, Lou Charles and people like that. I mean, they're
Oh, he's wonderful.
you know, I mean, they're definitely around. But it's kind of, you know, again, it's that thing where like, well, I used to recognize all these people in the Fort Worth Weekly, you know, and
Yeah.
you know,
That's like me reading a Rolling Stone.
oh, yeah.
You know, it's like, gee, well, back in the 60s, I knew everybody in here, and now I don't know anybody.
Well, it's kind of funny with the, like the Super Bowl thing where they had like was it J-Lo and Shakira or whatnot, who are kind of legacy artists at this point, you
True.
know, and that's kind of funny
It's
to
hard
me.
to wrap your head around. Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
to think
that's
about
hilarious.
freaking J-Lo being like a classic, you know, an oldie, you know,
Yeah.
but that's, I guess, what happens. You know, you first
if
you're
you're
like,
lucky.
hey, they're playing this song I like on the radio, and then a few years later, you're like, hey, they're playing this song I like in the grocery store, you know,
Exactly.
Yeah.
or hey, they're playing this
On
song I like
commercials or in
on
the
a Nike
grocery store.
commercial.
Yep.
You know, and so I guess that's the progression. I don't know. I'm leaning into it. I'm embracing it because otherwise I'd turn into one of those guys.
Yep, we have to embrace
You
it.
know, it's like, what the heck is all this?
Get off my lawn.
Yeah. You know, I don't want to be that guy. Well, and the thing is that things do go through cycles, and one of the things that came up was Bill's Records over in Fort Worth. Bill died.
Yeah.
You can't have Bill's Records without Bill, and so there was another couple of record shops that have kind of gone kaput lately, and you kind of see people sort of slowly dropping off of the map. People who kind of been fixtures for a really long
Eagle
time.
Audio shutting down.
Yeah, Eagle Audio
well,
for Pete's sake.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that had been there for, you know, Lord, I don't even know how long that's been there.
Yeah.
And about the time that the neighborhood was coming up too, you know, it used to be kind of took your life in your hands going over there, you know.
You park in there and then lock the fence behind you.
Right.
Yeah. If you're
now
lucky.
they got like restaurants and stuff. I've been over there a lot, but you know, I guess that's part of what happens is that you know, old worlds kind of slowly die away, and then the new ones start arising. I was down in Austin and walking down 6th Street, and there was hardly anybody down there, and it was freaking me out because I remember, you know, used to not be able to walk.
Right.
You know, there were so many people down there.
Well, it does go in waves though, because I
Yeah.
can remember, you know, playing at Trees a little over 10 years ago, and they'd closed down the streets, and you had to, you know, argue with the cops to be able to pull in and load out at the end of the night because
Yeah.
it was so packed.
Right.
And then playing there, you know, about 4 years ago or so, and a Saturday night, and going to load out, and it's vacant. There's no
Yeah.
traffic. There's no streets blocked off. There's no people. And then now it feels like it's come back around again.
Right.
I guess the last time I played at Trees was maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it was roads blocked off, busy,
Yeah.
crazy traffic again.
You can't drive down there anymore.
Uh-uh.
It's ridiculous. And because I've done like Pecan Lodge over there, and that was one thing. Like that gig starts at 6:30. There didn't used to be any Deep Ellum gigs that started at 6:30. Like you didn't get started till
No.
10 at the earliest.
Deep Ellum wasn't a place that you wanted to see in the daylight.
No, never. No, God forbid. You know, you would go out there early. You'd just be you and the panhandlers. That's the only people out there. But now there's like families. There's people walking their little kids around, you know, and crazy sauce, you know. Like it got me thinking about like I used to run an open mic at the Dog Star on Magnolia back in like '96. And there was just tumbleweeds and stuff going down there.
Oh,
and
my
of course,
gosh.
you know, it's very different now.
Oh, yeah.
But then I was thinking about it too. like I played a gig at Shaw's recently, but that's really the only Magnolia gig I've done in a while now. Did they still even bother with music on most of Magnolia? I mean, is there anywhere else down there that books music anymore?
Chat room will
Does
still do
chat
stuff.
Well,
still?
chat room
Yeah.
does still have them periodically,
Every
I
once
guess.
in a while.
Trying to think if there's anything else.
Yeah,
It's
the
not-
Bearded Lady used to have
They used
it,
to.
but I don't even know if
They-
it's
yeah.
there.
They moved. They moved.
Yeah.
They're over on
So,
South Main
We
now.
used to play down. Well, Barbara and I, when we were playing, we played at restaurants there on Magnolia.
Well, I
But,
used to, yeah. Like I used to play at Mijo's. And,
yeah, Mijo's while it was there, and then down at the Fixture,
Right.
and it was a funny thing. We played there once, and a lot of our friends came in that lived in the area because we lived close by, and so they came in and they kind of packed the bar area, and they ate and they stayed all night and they drank and they tipped well, and at the end of the night I could see the manager over there just kind of grumbling, like, and so I went and talked to him and I said, "Hey, it went really well." And he says, "Well, actually, I would have preferred if we could have turned the tables over a lot more."
Oh,
wow.
people
And-
parking and staying.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, we were too good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he actually stopped having music
Wow.
That's too
because
bad.
he didn't want people to stay.
And that's a funny, it is, when you're a musician, you kind of have to keep in mind that your motivation for being there is not always the same as the people who are having you in there.
yeah.
Because sometimes as a performer, you kind of want people to be like, hey, look at me, I'm up here. And sometimes
Sometimes your background music.
you don't need to be looked at.
Yeah.
You need to be heard rather than seen, or like I say, if I remember going to shows sometimes when I was underage, but you'd still go and play and bring all your friends with the X's on their hands and stuff. And we would think it went pretty well because they were all leaping around and stuff, but nope, they didn't sell any alcohol the whole night.
Yep.
So they didn't like us at all,
Yeah.
And I've had those where you feel like you had a really good night, but then it doesn't match the bar receipts. And then some nights when you don't think anyone's paying attention, and the manager's like, "Oh, it's a really good night. You need to come back." Like what? No one paid attention, but he didn't care. If they
Yeah.
made enough money.
Just figure out what everyone's measurement of success is, whether it's
Right.
Yes.
you as a performer or the other people in the band or the the wait staff or the owner and whatnot. I think that's part of the trick and part of the maturity process as a musician is being able to show up and kind of discern which kind of night it's going to be.
Yes.
And to be ready to kind of pivot and enjoy what you're doing
Right.
regardless.
And it takes a minute sometimes, like you set up and you start playing and you kind of see what people are doing. Like I did a Stockyards gig where it was kind of on the street type of thing the other night, and it was a little chilly. And so people were, they would stop for a minute and then they would kind of throw a couple of bucks in and take off, but like got really good feedback. But as by an objective measure, you would look and go, well, nobody's listening, nobody's staying. Like, well, but you're playing on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a thing that happens, and then they pay you anyway, so
Yeah.
like it doesn't matter. But I think you're right. I think adjusting your expectations and figuring out when to pivot and to go, okay, this is that type of gig I'm going to do. Because sometimes I'll play guitar for my girlfriend's paint classes, and so that's a different type of gig than like the Moon on a Friday or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
like that's
And I think that's something that some people struggle with. I played with, singers that, if the crowd wasn't responding and they weren't getting that connection,
Yeah.
then they're not able to have a good night.
Yeah,
or
they're
to
frustrated.
turn it into a rehearsal to try
Right.
something new because the stakes are lower or something like that.
There's the people who are really kind of high kinetic energy types, like I know, I can say this about him because I know him. Riker Hall was playing one of those paint nights, and you could see him just itching because he's like, I just want to bust out. He's he's young and full of vinegar. So I'm like, okay, let's see, who's that? All right, that person would enjoy this Pink Floyd instrumental. So it's kind of a. I think you're right. It's a maturing process.
But that's smart to gauge the room and see which way to ebb and flow with.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't even change the set list or the performance. It just changes your mindset, like your measurement of success.
That's true.
Yeah, if you played it and people didn't run away, You did
That's
all
a good
right.
It's a win.
And I do the thing, and maybe that's just my demographic. I appeal to introverts a lot. And so sometimes you'll think nobody's paying attention, but then after the show, there'll be that one guy that was way back in the back of the room who will come and like buy all my discs, you know?
Yeah.
And so like I didn't think he was listening, but he was. He was just doing so very quietly.
Yeah.
So you never can just, I've gotten frustrated in the past where you've been like, oh, this sucks, this is stupid, nobody's paying, but you don't know. You don't ever know who's paying attention, you know? But it's growing up, man. That's what you got to do. Speaking of which, so one of the unwise things that I do is get on the social media and talk about my opinions. And from a marketing perspective, that's probably not this, because you notice that like musicians, there are those who have chosen to just be musicians in the social space and to be like, you know, and I respect that a lot because I understand from a marketing perspective,
You are a product.
you're not gonna do nothing but run away half your crowd if you start. However, I just in these days I have a hard time keeping myself to myself because I feel like for me at least, there's a responsibility to speak out against things that I feel, and I feel like the people who get what I'm talking about are grateful for that. That somebody is. Well, see, there we go. We got people who like it, but for every one of you, there's another one that's like, to hell with this guy.
I enjoy and share.
But what it does is it makes for strange situations. So there was a guy, I'm not going to say his name, but he was on this show a few years ago as a local freelance music writer. And in the last couple of years, I've noticed his posts have started to go like QAnon and stuff like that, kind of going off the deep end there. And so he started trolling my posts here lately. And so I finally had to block the guy, you know, and it's crazy because you're like that. If he and I were to sit down and have a conversation about music, that wouldn't happen. You know, I mean, it would just be like, oh, what do you think of this and this and this? But then you venture into this sphere, and suddenly you kind of, people who you would ordinarily have a connection with, now you've just automatically severed it. And I kind of mourn that sometimes when that happens.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, that could have been a friend. But then knowing also that, I guess for me at least, my political consciousness is tied into my musical consciousness. So I don't know a way to separate the two. And some people are better at it than others. You know, like if you're singing songs about heartbreak and, you know, drinking beer or whatever, like it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Across all the spectrum there. But no, I think, and I really don't do that much. I really don't do a lot of opinions, but I love it when people do, especially the ones I agree with.
Well, there you go. You know, that's
and especially like you say, what you do, which is you're integrated. Your opinions are integrated into your music.
And that's the deal. Is that since that's the case, it's very difficult to extract them from just talking about life, you know, in general.
I mean, so your songs are going to piss off some people. That's okay, you know.
Well, and I figure plenty better people than me have pissed off people with their songs, so that's not really anything new.
No, I think it's a certain measure of success.
You know,
I think the place where I struggle to reconcile, you know, the maintaining your artistic persona and your musical persona is for musicians that are not lyricists,
right?
And because it can catch you by surprise.
Yeah,
I remember. So you know, I'm a big fan of Lee Sklar, the bassist, played with Phil Collins, James Taylor, and everybody else. He was one of the first guys I really listened to growing up, even before I got into bass. And so that stuff's kind of in my DNA. And then when I started following him on Facebook, maybe about 2 years ago, he is very politically vocal and very left-leaning and very, even, I'm going to use the word abrasive.
Right.
Just because he feels very strongly, and he's using his page as a platform to send that message. And it's not that I disagree with it, but it caught me off guard.
Right.
I was not expecting that. And
well, because you see a guy standing in the back with a 800-foot beard, not saying anything because he's playing bass, and you don't think that if you just sat him down and had a beer with him, that he would just explode with all of this stuff. You know?
And so I think also it's just kind of the challenge of, you know, the social media context where every opinion feels like it has to be amplified to a shout to,
of course,
Yes.
It's
Well,
something.
And they're much braver behind that computer. Or that, or
Yeah,
that
I
cell
know
phone.
I've had that happen before. I've gotten real brave, and then I bumped into somebody after, and I was
Whoops.
like, okay, now we got to talk about this. And, you know, and you know what happens is that everybody brings their tone down. Everybody starts talking in lowercase letters instead of capitals if you're
Right.
actually in the space with each other. Henry Rollins said something I think make a lot of sense to me. He said, I try to do every interview as if the guy I'm talking about is going to be waiting for me in the parking lot after.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, that's
a good
at
point.
some point that may happen. You know, I may bump into. He was talking about Ted Nugent because he had been friends with Nugent in the past, and he's on these shows talking about the guy. You know, he's gone nuts. I don't know what's going on with Ted. And then, of course, Ted confronts him after the thing. He's
Hey.
like, well, look, I'm showing him his posts and being like, I'm talking about what you're doing. Like, you know, but they were able to have a conversation about it instead of just shouting at each other, you know, through the. But I try to do that whenever possible, is not to just throw vitriol around at a specific person unless I feel like they're just have broken some kind of, I don't know.
This isn't a local band, but it's an indie band, and a band I really like. It's a group called the Double Clicks, a pair of siblings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen
and
that.
they have a song called that's on this very topic that's called "Sensitive Badass," about how you can be both
love
at
it.
the same time. And the reason it made me think of it is that one of the lyrics toward the end of the song is, you know, it's talking to the people who had sent them messages saying, I used to like your music until you started talking
Yeah.
about blah, blah, blah. It was if you haven't yet realized that we are political, you haven't listened. So we
Yeah.
will start yelling.
Oh my goodness.
Well, that's what, you know, I went and saw The Wall, Roger Waters do The Wall over there, and one of the things he does is he invites veterans backstage before the show because his dad was killed in the war. And, you know, he's had some of them who leaned differently than he did kind of confront him back there and been like, you know, I don't agree with what you're saying and whatnot. And he said, well, have you listened to my lyrics? Because, like, that's kind of the deal, you know, and you find that people don't. A lot of people don't listen to lyrics.
Oh, it's
very
all
closely.
it's all the people, you know, singing along to "Born in the USA."
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And they have no idea. Well, it
Right on.
it cheesed me off that there was a Levi's commercial years ago that had Fortunate Son on it, and they've got the American flag waving and whatnot, and they did the first line, some folks are born wave the flag, and then they cut the rest of it. And you're like, well, then you missed the whole,
Yeah, that's
you missed
wrong.
the whole point of the song.
Fill in the blanks.
You know, that to me is like rewriting Hallelujah to make it a Christmas song, you know, like which people do, you know, a Cohen tune, you know.
Yeah.
It's, you're
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
like, I mean, and I know about remixes. I know you can and from a historical perspective, you know, songs have been redone and reinterpreted 18 bajillion times,
Going
and
from
so
popular to, you know,
I can't get.
Yeah.
I can't get all high. I mean, you know, the national anthem used to be a drinking song.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Well, if Lawrence Welk can call One Toke Over the Line a modern spiritual, then
that cracked me up.
Get
by the
away
way.
with just about
kinda,
anything.
yeah, you know. Well, there was a Welk thing that I saw where there were these guys in these plaid shirts and they were singing the sounds of silence, but they were doing it like smiling and snapping. Hello, darkness, my old friend.
wow.
You know, like what in the hell are they? You know. But you think about it. I think if you were working on that show, you probably were high half the time.
Yeah.
Just you know, not that Lawrence could see you, but it's kind of like buddies. I don't know. Have you done the church gigs? Have you did?
Yeah.
So I mean, because I had a friend in Denton who was doing that, and he said, "Yeah, everybody just goes and gets really high behind the church, and then goes and plays."
It's a mixture. Yeah.
You know,
Spend it on the place. Yeah.
it's kind of because some of those I'm sure are more.
Some of them are
Tall
easier to
up.
get through than others. I'm fortunate to work with a lot of good musicians at my church, and
That's good.
Makes a difference.
I'm sure that's true. Because I've been offered some of those, and I've done kind of research, been like, well,
I've done a variety of them. I've done a mega church one.
Yeah, how was that?
Oh,
It paid as much in a week as I would make in a month at my other
Wow.
place, and I did it once, and I'm not going to ever do one of those again, and that's as far as I'll go with that.
oh my!
Yeah, I could see that. I can see that. Well, you know, and
Did you live through it?
Oh, it was a
best.
fascinating experience from an outside observer kind of cultural point of view.
Yeah.
It was fascinating.
Yeah.
Nobody
do it for
handed
that
you a
reason, too.
snake or anything.
Yeah, my goodness.
I was safely up on stage with the earbuds in.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Did you have the drummer behind the panel?
Oh yeah, the drummer in the cage. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Drummer in a box. It's all right.
I think that's so funny. That's the only place you see that is in churches.
It's a trend. Yeah.
And I guess it's too much. It's too can't. But then I guess if you're behind there, like you could go all Keith Moon if you wanted to, and like they wouldn't, Is it because of flying drumsticks, or is it just the?
I think it's sound baffling more than anything else.
Does it even work? I don't know.
Yeah, it works okay.
No,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. I haven't seen that. I guess the drummers I know are louder than that, so I don't know if they would. I don't know if it could get held back by that type of thing. But now, and kind of related to that, like sort of talking about your own personal feelings on the interwebs. I've gotten some pushback sometimes when I talk about being poor, because I think there's, first of all, in this culture, it's kind of a stigma. It's like, well, if you're poor, you must have done something wrong, or you must have there's something bad about you if that's the case. But I actually think it's kind of liberating to just go ahead and say it, And if you find when you say it, there's other people who go, yeah, I'm actually also poor.
Yeah.
And it probably doesn't hurt that my cohort is musicians for the most part, because most of us are not, don't have any money.
And then you don't feel alone.
You don't feel alone,
so.
right? But I've
it's
gotten
kinda
people who are
freeing,
like,
right?
you need to quit talking about that because people are going to, think you're looking for pity. I'm not looking for pity. I'm just saying.
No, you're not asking for anything.
I'm just saying.
Just the internet becomes your psychologist or
Right. Well, and I'm
couch,
keenly
if you
aware.
will.
I'm keenly aware that there's always someone poorer than you. This guy in front of the service station earlier. He's like, you can always find someone who's worse off than you, or who's so. I'm very grateful for anything that I have. But at the same time, I'm aware that there's strata, that go on. And it can be real awkward at gigs sometimes, because you'll have somebody who'll give you $100 tip or something. And it's less of a deal for them than it would be for me. Like I'm trying to picture who I would give $100 to, who I could give $100 tip to. I'm grateful for that. Grateful that, people are willing to put their money where their mouth is as far as music goes. But I'm also know when a guy doesn't have that and he still likes what I do, I'm like, you don't have to give me a tip at all. You can just say thank you for the music, or just tell your friends, like that's fine with me, But it's kind of, it is strange, the types of different worlds that can collide in a gig situation. Yeah. Like if you go down to Central Market or whatever, that's kind of a mixed bag. Who you're going to get down there. And then there's some places where all you get is we've done the Rustic or whatnot up there, where it's all uptown Dallas money, And I'm not going to say bad things about uptown Dallas money because I spend it.
Yeah, exactly.
And now that it's on a podcast, like they can hear me over there. So used to be when it was just radio, they couldn't even pick it
Say
up.
whatever you want. Yeah.
I'm not going to be that guy.
Yeah, I didn't realize that this was you were on podcast now, and
Yeah.
so I was telling people, I'm going to do this radio show, and they
It's
were
more or
like,
less
oh,
radio.
well, and I said, well, it's a Fort Worth radio station, and it actually doesn't even cover all of Fort Worth.
It's tricky. It's real hard to
Yeah.
get. Yeah.
It's kinda-
Well, they were dealing with stuff like there's a competing frequency in Sherman that occasionally turns its transmitter higher than they're supposed to, and so they'll get edged out on occasion. And but if you bring it up to the FCC, they're going to send the feds down to check it out, and then they're going to look at your stuff, And
Sure.
so it's like
We're like that with Mesquite High School.
yeah, because you got
They'll
the 88.5.
They'll compete with us.
Yeah,
Oh,
88.7. So
It's funny because I haven't. Well, I guess when I'm in Arlington and Grand Prairie, there's some cross pollination. But when I'm over here, I only ever pick up you guys.
It's good. Yeah, it's from here. It is.
Well, of course, I mean obviously because we're right next to the. I don't. Where is your tower? Is it on the grounds or is it?
It's right next to the football stadium.
Okay,
That's out
so
there,
it
and
is.
it used to be freshman parking, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
when I
We're
was
we're
there.
the only double-decker parking on the entire campus. They won't build parking garages for some reason. But, yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, you got to go park down by the, Fuzzies or whatever. I don't know. I don't know where they park for.
Exactly.
Yeah, good luck with that.
I spent 2 years parked next to Flash over there on that whatever that cross street is.
Yeah,
I
remember
had my spot
Flash.
that I would always try and get because I was living in Clark Hall. So
Over by the record store over there, which is now 2
yeah, I
doors
saw
down
the
from
sign.
where.
I was like, wait a minute.
That was exciting when I saw it when up tonight. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know where they had
Record
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was the same way. We were just discussing yesterday with somebody, okay, now, where is Record Town? Oh, I don't know. No, I do.
Yeah, no, they moved it over here, and apparently they're doing okay over here. So
that's great.
You know, I talked to them a little bit last time I was over here, and they were like, "Yeah, it's a pretty good location."
So are they doing
rent's cheaper.
all LPs?
I don't even. I mean, I've saw some CDs over there, but I think they do a lot of vinyl.
I've just seen them posting pictures, and it looks like LPs, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's where when you're talking about new
it's all
rec-
O-farts like us.
or the younger people.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I know a lot of 20-somethings who buy a lot of vinyl.
Yeah.
You know, it's. But then they're also buying cassettes, which is funny to
Oh,
me.
yes.
If you go to Dreamy Life, there's a whole little rack
Yeah,
of
really?
local
Yeah, I've
cassettes.
got a couple of girl students that are begging me to find my boxes of cassettes.
The ones you
know,
recorded
from
off of the
junior
radio?
high. Yeah, I have those too.
We hope the DJ doesn't talk over the intro.
Exactly.
You know, there's some songs that when they come on now, part of my brain expects that little snippet of the DJ talk that I recorded back in '86 or whatever,
Right, yeah.
and so it sounds weird. It's kind of like the pops and the grooves that
Yeah.
I remember
On the
from
records,
records I had.
yes.
And if the pop's not there, I'm a little
Yeah.
thrown off by it. I don't
That's
know.
right. It is. It's something. It's a trigger. It's something that's missing.
It's weird what our brains internalize. I went over to Free Play over there off Magnolia. It's just an arcade, but it's all like old arcade games.
Oh, cool.
And I found a game called Venture that I used to play on the dang ColecoVision, like, you know, years ago. And as soon as I saw it, I had not thought about that thing in 30 years. And as soon as I saw it, the entire map like materialized in my head, and I remembered all the levels and everything, and I played through it like it was yesterday.
Wow.
And it's crazy to me that was in there somewhere. You know, if you'd asked me what games do you play when you were a kid, I probably would have left it out. I wouldn't have even thought about it.
But it was
As
surfaced.
soon as I see it, it's in there.
Wow.
That's cool.
That's also a little scary.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder what else is in there.
Yeah.
That's true.
What's that taking the space up?
I know,
for?
right?
Yeah, right. What bit of yesterday's information I was supposed to remember is that
Yeah.
crowding out?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
that's kind of frustrating to me. It is weird though, because that is inside the old Live Oak. And,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
and
kn-
I didn't realize that until I went over there, because I'd been to the one in Arlington, but I hadn't been to this one. I'm walking up, I'm like, this is the dang Live Oak.
Holy cow. I didn't know what they did with that
Yeah,
space.
yeah, and so you go in and they've blacked out all the windows, and they've got like the 80s soundtrack playing, and it's all arcade games all through the entire thing.
That's
and back like just the garage door where the stage was, you know, and there's pinball machines all up along that. But it was very strange because I saw so many and I played shows there, and you're kind of walking through with this weird.
Yeah.
It felt
Yeah.
really bizarre
Yeah.
to me at first. You know, I eventually just fell into my groove, but it was odd at the time. You know, because I've done that with bars before, like The Usual over here. It was McHenry's
McHenry's.
for a while, and then before that it had been the Dog Star, and so I had seen all these different incarnations of this building, and so when I walk in, my mind is still spatially trying to figure out, you know, oh, that's not the stage anymore.
Yeah. Where was the stage here? You know.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Or even when they changed, like when they switched the J&J's to the Tin Panther, you know, they moved the stage from one side to the other. My mind was still thinking it was over there, you know. So it's something that people who haven't been to a place don't ever have to worry about.
Yeah.
Because it's a thing. But I don't know. Yeah, you should. Free play's kind of fun though. It's like $10 and you get to play anything in the joint.
Yeah, it's interesting that you tell that story, and I've heard older jazz guys tell similar stories about like the town pump.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is where Dos Gringos is now, and it had a stage in the middle that slowly rotated throughout the night. And
I'd heard about that. Yeah.
Sounds disorienting.
Oh yeah. You play, you know, an hour and 15-minute set, and maybe have a couple of sips of drink, and then you step off the stage and you just fall right over.
Oh, my goodness.
I guess there's a reason why they don't do that anymore
Yeah.
at various places. Moving stages are probably not the best idea. I'm going to skip that. Speaking of things getting torn down and changed, so the Fort Worth Convention Center, the big dang flying saucer, they're going to tear that thing down.
No.
And
That's
I'm trying to
awful.
figure out whether I am sad about it or
I'm
not.
sad about
Yeah.
it.
Well, because I've seen some stuff there, but also I'm curious to see what they do with it because I haven't been there for a long time to see anything.
That's true.
I mean,
It's been years, but it holds a lot of good memories. So
it does, and just my internal geography of downtown is kind of, that's a component of
Yeah.
it, and so if they
Yeah.
change it, of course now that used to be where the old cellar was, the cellar bar back in the 60s, which was kind of notorious, and so it's changed before, and will continue to change, but I can't help but feel a little bit sad about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those places that has some history to it. Like there's been lots of bands that have come through and played it, and some of which are captured, I think, in that YouTube movie Rattle and Hum. I think part of that's recorded in that.
Really?
In
I have
that.
to check that out.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and there's what's kind of what I had like when I went to. I know it's not cool to like YouTube, but I do, and it's when we recorded at Sun Studio. And they have the same drum set that like Larry Mullen was playing when they did the thing up there, and it's kind of like, this is pretty cool. I mean, also Johnny Cash, which is pretty.
Yeah.
And there's only one toilet in the whole place, so like you're peeing where Johnny Cash peed,
Probably.
which is that's pretty rock and roll there.
Yeah.
It's very rock and roll. That's awesome.
Johnny Cash peed here.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I think that there's any time that there's change in a scene, there's always the inclination to doubt it from some of us who have seen it for a long time. There's always the inclination to go, it's
I
not
like
gonna
change,
be
but I don't like change.
right. Yeah, because sometimes the change is good. Like you go to some places like I think that New Moon location is
Yeah,
really
I was about to
good.
bring that up. So and sometimes the change is like a reinvigoration of something. Like I was thinking of the Moon. I was also thinking of Lola's, the Rec Room
Right.
sunsetting, and then Lola's opening, and people complaining that it was too much like the Rec Room or not enough like the Rec Room.
Exactly.
Like
And it's been around long enough now that
Yeah,
almost nobody cares
Yeah.
anymore. It's
Now
like,
it's morphed into a completely different animal.
so now there are
with-
people who
with
grew
the
up going.
outside and-
The people who grew up going to Lola's who don't even know about the Rec Room.
Yeah.
And so, and I mean, Rec Room was kind of small and pokey, and I mean, you had some good times there, but it was not as nice a space.
It was it was a wreck. But it was the best. The two sides, and then Jesse doing his art in the very back.
Yeah,
and that
little
outside patio. I love that
I had
place.
some really good times in that place,
Loved
but
it.
and that was always anytime something like that shows down, everybody's like, and then the new place opens, like, they're selling out. It's always a sellout. Why is it always a sellout? It's like maybe it's not a sellout. Maybe they just decided not to keep paying that rent. Fort Worth Live, was downtown, and I thought that was kind of a cool space. But then, Brooks kind of picked up and scooted over to the Post, and the Post is a really nice.
That's a much more versatile space
Yeah.
than Fort Worth Live.
And I kind of wish you could keep both. So you can kind of have an option if you want a smaller room or if you want a bigger one. But I'm not going to be too upset about it. But I think there's a tendency to when you've attached some memories to a place, you kind of want that place to stay there. Like it happened when my grandma died last year, and she'd been in that house since before I was born, and so many of my memories were wrapped up in that house, and of course I had to sell the house, and so I won't even go by there now. I won't even go. I don't want to see who's in it. I don't want to see what they've changed. I don't want it. I want my little memory intact, and I think sometimes people have that about music venues.
I think people have that about everything.
Yeah, like I won't go into the Riata. I won't go into the Riata because to me that's the Caravan of Dreams. And I don't want to. I don't want
just
to
go
see.
upstairs. It's a 4-day weekend.
Right? Because that's the same. But
That looks the same.
Right, that hasn't changed. But I'm not going to go into that. That to me is kind of profane. Mostly because I'm bummed because I never got to play it.
Yeah.
Like that was going to be my mark. Was like I'm going to know that I'm doing well
made it.
if I can play the dang Caravan of Dreams, and then they
Yeah.
freaking closed it on me.
I never played Caravan of Dreams, but my bass amp did.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
because I think it was Tim Locke's band. I think it was Blue Sky Black at the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, I
loaned it to Byron.
saw when they were Grand Street Criers. I saw
Yeah.
them there. So you have what's his name's cabinet? I can't remember what.
But it was.
their bass player at the time.
I loaned it to Byron because his
Yeah,
was
yeah.
on the Fritz.
Oh,
I was
okay.
like, we got a show tonight. Can I borrow your? Yeah, sure.
That's funny because that's most of my claims to fame involve other people doing stuff with my stuff. Like we were playing at Dada.
Should get it stamped like a passport.
Yeah, right.
you know?
I honestly should because
Seriously.
I've been like 3 feet from fame so many times. You know,
Yeah.
that's kind of the bass player's job, isn't it? Is to-
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting
funny.
that you mentioned Caravan. So Aiden Bubeck,
Oh, yeah.
fantastic bassist.
Yeah, that guy's ridiculous.
when he came back into town, I started playing a little bit less. No, I love it. He's great.
I know what you mean, though.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. But he actually has 2 very special basses. One of them was made from a piece of the stage from Caravan.
Wow.
And another one was made from the piece of the stage at Sardines.
Wow.
Really?
Funny.
He just went in when they were doing demo, and I don't know if he asked or he just started grabbing wood and then took it to the luthier and said, "Turn this into a bass."
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, are those his 3-string basses?
I think they're both 3-string basses. He's got a few 3 strings in his arsenal.
Yeah.
Wow. See, and that's another from one of my 3 feats because I was in Weatherford College Jazz Band with him.
There you go.
When we were in, and he was amazing then, and so it's always kind of one of those things where you spot somebody years later and you're like, hey, wait,
Yeah.
we used to both be schmucks playing in this. And now you're like, getting endorsements and stuff from all these, like, he probably never has to buy a bass again, I would imagine.
He does though.
Yeah, I guess that's
what I
true.
like is he finds weird cheap basses. Like last time I
Right.
saw him, he was like, "Hey, I got this online for $90, and then I swapped out the pickups, and I did this, and I did that, and, and it sounds great."
So it's a project then too.
But that's kind of fun
Yeah.
to be able to do that. That's one of the things that makes me sometimes tempted to take. Like I never took shop in school. Like I never took to learn how to solder and all that kind of stuff. And I really regret it now because you can make all kind of crap out musical instrument wise. I've seen people make instruments out of bedpans and
Oh, yeah.
whatever the hell. My dad made one out of a wash tub. Made a bass out of one. Put a little wooden cover on it and stuck a neck on it.
Remember the guy that used to come? Speaking of Rec Room, I saw him at the Rec Room. That one guy.
That's
Did you ever
what
see that
I was
with
just
the
thinking
big
about
old
him.
PVC tubing and the 2 bass strings. He had an upright string and electric string.
I was just
And-
thinking about
oh,
him.
man,
Love
made the
him.
cool. It was just big bunch of PVC pipe attached to a bass. And
He had a foot pedal and a couple other things.
solo,
to it,
no
but
band, just him.
And it sounded like
he would put on a whole
6
set.
people.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, that stuff.
I've got some of that in rotation.
Awesome.
So
Do you really?
yes. that
Like
one
he
guy.
made a record?
Oh, he's
with
made
that?
several.
Oh yes, made several.
Wow.
The Moon is Disgusting is one of my favorites. Fart Machine. Butt Machine, excuse me.
Yeah.
Butt Machine. It's got some great,
Wow.
great lyrics. But the beat is just so infectious.
Yeah, well, and one of the things I like about your show too is that you've been in the scene long enough where sometimes I'll hear you play a track that hasn't been new for a long time, but that some of us remember, and I'm kind of like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
it's like-
that's what I get comments on from the older demographic.
Yeah,
and
right.
the newer because they think it's new.
Well, because they've never heard it.
Right.
Yeah, I've had that happen before where I'll play something for somebody and they'll be like, who is that? And when did that come out? Like 1989 or something.
Exactly.
Like, it's not that old. Because there's things that aren't as marked by the times as other things. Sometimes some of them you can tell instantly.
Yeah.
When they're from a particular era, but sometimes it's hard to know. Like if it's something weird, like what was it I was listening to?
There was a Yaz song the other day someone thought was
Yeah,
new.
yeah.
I'm like, Yaz, hello.
Well, like Morphine. I was listening to
Oh, my
this
gosh.
Morphine track the other day, and like that could have come
Timeless.
out
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah.
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 Or 10 years before it actually came out. It's hard to say. But I'm always a fan of bands that do stuff that like no one else can really do. That's why I think like people like Cake have stuck around because there's
Yeah.
really nobody else that sounds like that.
Yeah.
And so even though they've made the same album like 10 times,
Exactly.
It's fine. You know what you're getting.
it's a good album.
Exactly. Yeah. So much
AC/DC
fun.
did that for 40 years. If you buy an AC/DC album, you know exactly what the
Yeah.
whole album sounds like.
Pretty much.
And that's normally something that kind of cheeses me off, but it's kind of like, well, you know, what else are you gonna? It's like Motorhead, you know. It's like you know what Motorhead sounds like.
And they're the diehard fans that want that.
Oh my
sound.
gosh, yeah. Well, and you know, vicious arguments I've heard, you know, pop up. About, so there's this new Ozzy single, I guess it is, and he's got like the drum machine and all this kind of stuff, and people are like, Ozzy, you know. I'm like, you got to give him. He don't care anymore.
I heard he was going to tour again, and I thought, why?
What's he got to lose? You know, like, you know. So you don't like my record, whatever. I would love to be in that type of position. You know, I mean, you're going to piss some people off, but I'm sure he's pissed off plenty of people in his time anyway. So it's nothing new.
Poor guy probably doesn't.
Yeah, he never
realize what's going on.
Right? Yeah, he has no idea
anyway.
what's happening. Somebody was just like, "Here, try to sing along." This, all right.
Exactly.
Somebody was telling me, people think that the way he sounds like that is because of like he's high on something. But if you ever go to Birmingham, where he's from, like everybody sounds like that. That's the accent. Like everybody sounds. So that's not. I mean, you know, there are drugs involved, but you don't need them. You don't actually need
Not
them.
entirely.
Yeah, drugs only amplify what's already there.
Yeah, right. Like it was already there. Yeah. And people are like, Black Sabbath is the only kind of music you would actually be able to make if you were from Birmingham, you know, like because that's just how it sounds up there, you know, like industrial machinery and so I don't know what. I try to talk about local music, but I end up drifting off into stuff like that. I'm trying to figure out the. So when we talk about music festivals and whatnot, I know that Fortress is kind of a big deal right now, but it seemed like, didn't we have another bigger one last year? That was not bigger, but that was kind of in that same range.
There was one way bigger, the Kaboo.
That's right, and they're not even doing that again this year, are they?
I haven't heard.
Yeah.
They should be planning by now if they were going to, and we were on board to be a sponsor again.
Oh, okay.
If they were, but I haven't heard anything from their
ain't
people.
Got nothing. Well, that one almost kind of seemed like somebody just dumped out their record collection, and because it was like Lionel Richie and the Black Eyed Peas.
It didn't have the. It didn't have the.
Who is your target demographic
that they wanted? Yeah.
I guess just anybody.
Jesse's Girl.
It was Rick Springfield.
Yeah.
Was on, yeah.
Oh my
Was
goodness.
Sting at that one too?
Yeah, Sting was playing at
Sting
that
was
one.
at that one.
And
Wow.
And like
not Ludacris. I think it was.
Might well have been. I don't
think
know.
it was
They pretty much
Ludacris.
put everybody on there.
Everybody.
I think there was just a guy who could just
There were
afford
7
it.
different stages, and it was outrageous.
Just like let's just everybody who I've ever bought
and
a
it was
record
crappy
from.
weather, so that was another reason why a lot of people didn't go.
Yeah. Well, I did have friends that did go, and they thought it was pretty awesome, but you know, like it was dubious to me.
It was a big trek.
Right.
You
Well,
can
that's the
imagine
other.
at Jerry
See,
World, it was
and
a
this will
big trek.
and this will tell you, you know, that's a kind of an age tell to me. I'm just like, I don't know, what's the parking going to be like?
Exactly.
You know, I would never have said that, you know. But it's because I had those experiences, though, because I went to the freaking Horde Festival in Ennis, you know, and had to trek for 800 miles to get to the stage, you know. It's like,
Been there, done that.
yeah, I'm
you
like
know.
this, you know, was the payoff worth it really, you know? And
That's when I send the student DJs to go do the dirty work for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say it's very charming sometimes when you get these kids who are like doing the morning traffic reports on KTCU sometimes.
Yeah.
Because you can tell they don't know the roads very well.
No, they don't pronounce anything correctly.
So they'll be like, over on Mom, you know, like they'll mispronounce one of the things, and between
And
exit.
they read all the letters and the numbers, and it's really not necessary. Yeah.
But I find that rather charming. You know, I think that's kind of. It reminds me. When I was in high school, I used to DJ at this little AM station over in Weatherford. You know, and I was just as awkward and didn't know what the heck I was doing over there either. You know, and so it's a little nostalgia trip for me, I guess. Except I had to read the weather off of the Star Telegram. We got the Star Telegram in the morning, and I would say the KZ color weather radar today. You know, it's gonna. And the color weather radar was.
Did you make the helicopter noises for the traffic report?
Yeah. We did have a guy when we had bad weather. We would send this guy Steve out to different parts of town, and he would call in. And so I'd put him on the air. Hey, Steve, we got Steve Prentice. He's over there on Fort Worth Highway and you know, Bowie Drive. What's going on over there? Well, it's raining over here. So don't come over here. It's raining over on this side of town. I'm gonna go drive over to South Main, and I'm gonna call you back. And so, all right, and thanks, Steve. It's raining over on that side of town. And then he would drive, 15 minutes or something, call in. Yeah, it's raining over here too. It's pretty much if you're in Weatherford and it's raining.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I got a buddy who lived in Alpine down by Marfa for a while, and we'd have people say, "Oh, my house is about 5 minutes from here." Like, I know, like everything's 5 minutes from here. It's not that big a town. Like Fort Worth's kind of like that to a degree. Once you get,
That's true.
I pretty much know. And I used to live in the suburbs a little more, but I'm close to things now, so it's like it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, unless the stock show's in town.
Yeah.
Which it is right now, and I'm having to navigate all of that mess coming out of there.
We stay away. I don't go any further than the campus, and then I go the opposite
That's
way.
probably smart.
So.
That's probably wise of you to do that. If we wanted to find out more about what your adventures are on the interwebs, where do we go?
For the station,
Yeah.
ktcu.tcu.edu.
And they follow you on, you do the Sputnik radio
And
thing.
then Sputnik is on, I've got, I don't have the website anymore, but just the Facebook.
Oh, okay, cool.
The Sputnik Radio
Very nice.
on Facebook.
If we wanted to find out more about what Jeremy Hall's doing, what do we do?
There's not a good clearinghouse other than my calendar, which my wife keeps me honest about. I'd say check out the Dolan Band on Facebook.
Okay.
That's a cover group, and I play with also does some originals.
Very nice.
And then I play with Johnny Reno many
Yeah.
Thursdays down at Scat Jazz Lounge.
Very nice.
So it's not
Nice.
every Thursday, but nearly enough. I'll be there. Yeah, and then
Cool.
various other things as they come up. Hopefully, we'll do another Intruder gig
Yes.
at the Peter Gabriel covers
That was pretty
at some
awesome.
point. That was That was a lot of work to put together, but it was a lot of fun to play. Unlike a few years ago where we did the Primus tribute.
Oh
and
my
that
gosh.
was a lot of work to put together and a lot of work to play
For you.
And and we did that twice. We did it once at the event, and then we did it like 10 months later, and it wasn't any easier the second time.
Oh, no.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll do some more Intruder shows. But
Yeah, I would definitely like to see that. And so, if we wanted to find out more about what you're up to, Mr. Gibbons,
Just called down to the police station.
Southside Preservation Hall.
Yes, we are trying to revitalize. We're still doing our regular big band down there and our Tuesday night swing dance lessons down there. So we do the first Friday of the month. This coming Friday will be it, and it's 8 to 11, and it's a great band. I mean, the band is better than ever because all the old people are quitting, and now I'm one of the old people. And if I had to audition for the band now, I probably couldn't get in.
You can get grandfathered as it
Yeah,
were.
that's right. And I have keys to the building, so that helps too.
That's very helpful.
But so I'm doing that and
Cool.
playing with some old J.B. Wynn and some blues people downtown.
Very cool.
And every once in a while,
You're out and about.
Yeah, a little bit, not much. Doing a lot of things at people's houses because it's just so much easier and it's really more fun.
Oh yeah. House
You know?
concerts are great. I
Yeah,
like those.
just that's just been, kind of like you're not 22 anymore. You don't want to go hassle with all the.
You're
stuff.
you're less likely to get a Red Bull spilled on you.
A lot less, and or a lot less likely to get arrested for something. So
That's true. Yeah.
So we've been doing
Plausible
doing a lot of just real low key things at people's houses for fun.
Yeah.
And of course the TCC big band,
Absolutely.
South Campus. Rick Stitzel has 3 bands going down there now.
Very cool.
And those bands are really good too. So
They don't mess around.
so that's a great thing. I'm hanging in there with guitarist reading skills, none, and with these guys that can read stuff like you're reading the funny paper.
It's a whole thing there.
But
yeah.
it's great. The good thing about being the guitarist in the big band is that if there's a part that you can't play, you just don't play it.
Piano player, take it.
You're turned down so low that nobody can hear you anyway. It was years ago. We were playing, and Rick would say, "Jeff, could you turn down? Could you turn down?" I said, "Rick, playing guitar in this band is a lot like peeing in a swimming pool." Said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, you get a real warm feeling, but nobody else notices."
That's hilarious.
I'm going to remember that one.
That's right. Yeah.
It'll alarm all my friends.
Yeah.
and
Now
family
he'll
with that.
never go in the swimming pool with me.
I'm not. No, not at all. Well, one thing you definitely need to come and see. No one's going to pee on you in the swimming pool here at Leaves Book and Tea Shop. They've sponsored us for the last few episodes, and you should definitely check them out. They're down here on St. Louis Avenue. They have all the finest teas. I've been drinking the Singer's Blend. You got some of that stuff there.
I'm hoping to become a singer.
Wait, you got about 2 minutes. Because one of the things we like to do here on the barbershop is to have a local artist cover a local artist. Mr. Jeff Gibbons is going to cover local artists. Is that correct?
I will. Yeah, I said I would, so I will.
So you got it. Find us on the Facebook Barbershop Fort Worth. And this here's Jeff Gibbons. What song are you doing there?
I'm going to do a song by a mutual friend of ours, Steve Obermiller.
Yes, indeed.
Who is a really good songwriter. And he also has a band called Uber Duber, because nobody can say Obermiller. And he's married to Hillary Tips, who's also a wonderful songwriter.
She is indeed.
Some songs I've heard them do for years, and I thought, oh, this is some song from a popular song that I didn't know about, which is most popular songs. And it turns out, no, that's one Hillary wrote. So it's remarkable. But
cool.
So I'm going to do a song that he wrote. It came from a quote out of a book, an Abraham Lincoln biography that he read. At the end of the Civil War, after the South had surrendered, then there was the debate about what the Northern government was going to do with these treasonous Southerners. And there were ideas of, let's put them on trial, let's put them all in prison. And he said, let's let them up easy. And I've heard him, and so meaning, let's not do that. Let's let them go. And the funny thing about that is it wasn't until I started actually working on this song that I realized that that phrase is something that we used to actually say when we were little kids. Of course, that was back in the 50s. That was the 1950s for you there in Radio Land.
We're not to the 2050s yet.
Yeah, we're not. Or the 1850s, and in East Texas, and when two guys were scuffling and not really fighting, but just to see who could pin the other one. Once somebody really had the upper hand, then you'd say, okay, no sense rubbing his nose in it. Let him up easy. And I had completely forgotten that because I hadn't heard that phrase. I hadn't thought about using it probably since I was, 7 or 8 years old. So then I thought, wow, that's remarkable that that language continued. Of course, in East Texas, there are a lot of things from Civil War times that continue.
That haven't changed very much at all.
They haven't changed a lot. So, but that was an interesting thing to me. And of course, I went to Robert E. Lee Junior High. And graduated from Robert E. Lee High School.
Yeah.
And we had the rebel flag that covered half the football field and took 50 people to hold it up. And we had...
it was a different time.
It was. We had our American history teacher got you to the Civil War, and then we spent weeks diagramming battles from the Civil War. But the thing about it, the year was over. your school was over before we got to the end of the Civil War.
Oh.
Because he didn't like the way it went down.
So you just skip over that part.
It's like, we don't want to talk about that.
That part's not important.
Yeah, so yeah, we were pretty ed up with that stuff.
Well, that's the thing that, and you know, out in East Texas they hunt a lot of Sasquatch too, if I heard correctly. Is that,
Yeah, there's a lot.
that probably hasn't changed.
East Texas. Full of them.
All right, well, Jeff Gibbons is going to do a song by Steve Overmiller, and appreciate you guys listening.
Gentlemen, lay down your guns and your revenge, offer more than you have won. We've grown weary of the acrid taste that hatred leaves upon the tongue. Remember them as kin and countrymen, no more as enemies. Let 'em up easy, let 'em go home, let 'em have pride, let 'em stand strong, let 'em have life, offer them love, let 'em go free, let 'em up easy. Let hate be done, we no longer need a settling of the score. Home is close enough for those whose luck has run longer than the war. Remember them as kin and countrymen, no more as enemies, and let 'em up easy, let 'em go home, let 'em have pride, let 'em stand strong, and let 'em have life, offer them love, let 'em go free, and let 'em up easy. From Fort Sumter to the Appomattox graves, and every death made in between, let none on either side be forgotten or in vain be lost to history. God rest their souls, never to roam. We will give them up to thee. Lay them down low, forever home. May they rest in peace, and let 'em up easy. Let 'em go home, let 'em have pride, let 'em stand strong. Now let 'em have life, offer them love, let 'em go free, let 'em up easy.
Yeah, man.
The Barbershop is sponsored by Lee's Book and Tea Shop. Visit them at 120 St. Louis Avenue in Fort Worth.